So in 2009, I went back to school, enrolled in Peninsula, and went and got my GED. I About a week and a half went by, and I got a call, and they wanted me for an interview. So I went out not knowing what to expect and thinking that all my crazy living as a teen was going to stop me from getting a job. But thank God I was wrong. And I went through the interview process, and I went through psychiatric evaluations, drug testing, numerous tests and interviews. And after about 2 weeks, I was offered the position at Clallam Bay as an officer. This would be the beginning of a life change for me. I I wasn't sure how things were going to go, and I was scared to death, to say the least. And I remember my first day going up to the prison and walking up a long sidewalk and seeing this huge, enormous building, which was surrounded by 20-foot tall fences, and they were made of barbed wire and razor blades, and it was quite the intimidating first impression. My first experience as I walked through the doors was being greeted by this angry-looking female who, without any warning, came up and violated me with a pat search. Then went through all my belongings and sent me through a metal detector. And I was, I guess, a little put off at what you had to go through just to get into work. And this would be every single day, the duration of our jobs. But she smiled and said, "Hope you know what you're in for. Welcome to the Bay." The icing on the cake at that point was her evil little laugh that followed. So, my emotions were high and scared to death, had absolutely no idea what to do or what to expect. And it was being thrown into the wolves is the best way I can describe it. The only difference was there's like 900 people there who want you dead, and you can die at any moment. Each day you're assigned to a new post, and some weren't as bad as others, and as time went on, I got used to it and knew kind of what to expect and how people's behaviors changed if something was going on. And aside from the crazy world that was prison, I took away from it a lot of experiences and a lot of memories that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about my story. I learned quickly that if I gave respect to the inmates, that they would give it in return, and that there were some remarkable young people out there who had just been never given a chance, and they ended up incarcerated based on the kind of living that they had while they were on the streets. They took a while, I guess, to open up and kind of, I wouldn't say trust me, but accept a female officer in everyday living. But they have their own little code, and it's a code of respect. They didn't respect their victims. They didn't respect their families or themselves by the choices they made. But in the walls of Clallam Bay, respect is the number one rule, and I guess you have to be in it and see it to even try and understand it. But as I became more aware of the rules and expectations of both my coworkers, my superiors, and the inmates themselves, I actually began to love my job, and I was good at it. And about 6 months into it, I was offered a promotion, which I didn't want. They wanted to lock me up in a little box and due to being able to multitask, they wanted me to run all the movement of the entire facility, which is not my idea of fun. So I took it to my head superior, the lieutenant and captain of the prison, and I declined it. And he was furious. He freaked out, screamed and yelled and told me I was stupid and I was never probably going to be given another shot at anything while I was there. And my only response was, if I'm not happy, there's no point in coming to work every day. If I don't enjoy my job, I'm not going to be good at it and I'm not going to succeed. So we came to an agreement and I stayed just as an intermittent, and I was put into J Unit, which would be my favorite place to work. I remember the first day that I came face to face with Quentin. He was a closed custody offender who had just been moved out to the building, as they called it, which was a part of the prison where the inmates are allowed to walk around from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, and they have keys to their own houses or their cell. They call them houses. And it's just the officer sitting at a little podium with a radio and a pair of handcuffs. And it's a rather intimidating place to be. A lot of bad things can happen out there, but I loved it. And Quentin was this massive guy. He was 6'4" and very confident, and as he, had this confident stride about him and shoulders back and head held high, and the other inmates seemed to respect him a lot. And I could see how he took the young, recently or newly incarcerated younger kids and kind of took them under his wing and helped them out and kind of gave them the protection so nothing bad would happen to them. And I thought that was pretty cool that these guys looked out for each other. But as time went on, I could see something in him, I guess, was a better way to word it. And he would eventually start to open up and we'd have little conversations here and there. So one night he approached my podium and he just had this smirky, kind of cocky look to him. And I said, "Hey, what's up? What are you doing?" And he puts a little Hershey kiss on the edge of my podium and smiled and says, "So you like chocolate?" And he was crossing the lines, definitely, with the sexual innuendos and just, you don't go there with staff members. But I found it humorous. I laughed and I said, yeah, I do. And that was the beginning of one crazy adventure. As time went on, we talked more and more, and we were breaking the rules. I was, at that point, in way over my head, and but we had conversations whenever we could, and he came up one day and with this just, I don't know, painful look on his face and said, "They're taking me out of here. They're transferring me, and I'm probably never going to see you again." And this is about 15 months into my job, so I had kind of developed a rapport with these guys, and I started to look at them as friends. They weren't just inmates. They weren't, these hardened bad people. They were just like anybody else that you see on a daily basis. So I was emotional over it, and he handed me a napkin, and he's like, "I hope you don't lock me up for this." And I said, "No, you're okay." And I just shoved it in my bag and went on about my day. Well, he got moved, and it was it was hard, but I went on showing up to work every day and pretending that I didn't miss him. I didn't miss his presence in the unit. And 4 months later, I received a letter in the mail from his mother, who had tracked me down through social media, and it simply said, "Here's his address. He loves you. He's told me all about you, and I hope that at some point you reach out to him." Well, I had been keeping all of my feelings inside and didn't realize how much I actually cared, and didn't realize that I had actually fallen in love, and all before the single touch of a person's hand. I didn't think it was possible. But I quit my job in September of 2011. And at that point, it started a relationship that I hold extremely dearly to my heart. We wrote letters every single day and talked on the phone probably 5 different times a night, 20-minute increments, because that's as long as they give you, and then they hang up on you. And in September of 2012, the day that we had waited so patiently for finally came, and it was his release date, and he finally got to experience freedom, from prison, after 18 years. And he'd never had the experience of things that we took for granted every day, like driving or cell phones or computers or anything like that. He had been in there since he was 17 and had no clue what living was about. So the day that he got out, I remember him walking down the long, what seemed forever, sidewalk, and he just wrapped his arms around me, and we both had tears running down our eyes. And from that day on, we started our life together. And it was a union that we had built on love and respect and honesty. And it was challenging, but we did it. And not quite a year later, on Valentine's, it was our first Valentine's together, we found out we were going to have a baby. And it was one of the most special moments of my life. And in October of 2013, our daughter was born. Quindasia is her name. And she's perfect. But me and Quentin faced many, many challenges that first year, from not being able to find places to live because of his criminal background. And like I said, him just never having the chance to do things. And so we made it through for the most part, though. But we both had to adapt. And I lost a lot of friends because of the decisions I made. I had family who wouldn't speak to me because of us being in an interracial relationship. It was challenges. But like I said, we faced them head on. And didn't let the little bumps in the road stop us from finding the happiness that we deserved. But in July of 2014, he had decided he was going to go visit friends, and they were in Mexico, which, as a felon, you are not allowed to leave the country, obviously, but he did. And they drove down, and I didn't know anything about it. His mom didn't know anything about it because he knew we would both put a stop to it. But he went down and called about 2 weeks later. He had called and let us know where he was and how things were and what was going on. And he was freaking out. He needed out of there. And if he couldn't get out, he was going to end up dead. They didn't want him there. So he said, call everybody, which means his probation officer and the Department of Corrections and everybody else who was looking for him at the time. Let them know that I'll be home in 2 days, and I'll go sit my 30 days for breaking probation and yada yada. So I made those calls and I did what he asked me to do. And 2 days came and went, and we talked every day while he was there to see how things were progressing and if he was going to be able to get out. And he said, "Don't worry, I love you. Kiss my daughter for me, and I'll see you in 2 days." And that was the last time I ever heard from him. That was the last words we ever spoke. And a week went by with nothing. And so I filed missing persons reports. And from there, we got word that the person he was with told us that he was stabbed and dumped in the water and murdered by Mexicans in Mexico. And that was a lot to take in. We don't know still, 2 years later, if there's ever going to be any more answers. I called the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, every jail from the Texas and Mexico border, and no one can tell me anything. It's just his family gave up looking, and so after many, many months of shedding tears and being depressed and not wanting to do anything, I finally came to the conclusion that I had to keep going. I had to hold myself together for my kids and do something where I was going to make a difference and I wasn't going to struggle anymore. So at 36, single mom, 3 kids, I decided I was going to go back to school again. And this time I was going to do it for a career. So I am now 3rd semester in, working on my nursing degree, or my prereqs to get into the nursing program, in hopes of doing that with my life. And it's a lot, and it's hard, but I feel like for the first time in a very long time, I am on the right path. So I guess, the story sounds crazy, and it kind of sounds like a bad movie, but it was life, and I know that I was judged and still am judged for the decisions and choices I made, and I don't expect people to understand them, and unless you're put in that kind of a situation, you have no idea what you would do, but I have no regrets. I have a beautiful daughter. I have beautiful memories that I won't ever forget. And I got to experience the true and most genuine love of another. So, I guess after all of this, what I hope you take away from it is life happens and crazy things happen, and they're not always good. But out of everything bad, there's always something positive you can take from it. And from this whole experience, I just learned that I still deserve to be happy. And there's a black cloud with a silver lining, and it's never too late to start over and, go for the goals and do what you want to do, and don't let anything hold you back. So, thank you.